Yes, and I do the same thing on IG Live. I'm not very worried about how many viewers there are right now,
Yeah,
because a lot of people do replay it in the evening or
totally.
the following day.
And do you do a lot of IG Live?
I just kicked off that series yesterday, and
Okay.
I'm doing about 2 to 3 every week.
Okay. Good for you. That's great.
Hmm.
And you're enjoying it?
Yes, because it's widening my audience,
Yeah.
and I get to present experts
Yeah.
basically in their field. So yesterday was the child sleep consultant, right?
Okay.
So much value for our audience, and
Well, I guess here we go. That's right. So, welcome everybody. I'm really excited today to engage with Business Resilience Now, which has been our monthly and sometimes bi-weekly webinar that we've been running. And the whole idea has been to give people some hope and some solutions when it comes to business resilience. Of course, resilience, it personally is more important than business resilience, but at the end of the day, our businesses, our jobs, our careers, they impact us at every level. And so I'm so excited today to have Danielle with us here. And I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about her in just a moment. And you're going to get to know her, I hope, really well today. And, she's got a big heart and I think a really important message. But before we do that, I think we all know that COVID has changed the world. And that's, both good and bad. I mean, change in and of itself is not a bad thing. And, interestingly, when COVID started, people were, I think, really focused on the bad things, and there's a lot of them that COVID has brought. And we need to keep our eye on those negative impacts. But beyond that, there's also been some positive things, right? And, I really feel like it's time for hope. At the end of the day, COVID is just like anything else. And what that means is, you can look at it through the lens of pessimism and negativity. You can also look at it through the lens of optimism and positivity. And I really believe, and if there's one thing that has, blessed my heart, has been the opportunity to have conversations. I'm not a person who really believes like the answer is always this all the time. I think that we find answers, we find solutions through different perspectives. And it's been amazing. I've been so blessed to have all kinds of business owners and executives and entrepreneurs on this program. I think what has sort of woven them all together, because they all have different businesses and different genders and different ethnic backgrounds and even different religions or faiths. But number one, they're all running businesses, and number two, they're all good-hearted people who are trying to make a difference in the world. And so today we have Danielle Manguinao. Am I saying that right?
Manguinao.
Manguinao, and I feel really bad because my wife is Filipina, and I feel like I should have the whole thing figured out by now, but I'm still working on some pronunciation things, and but Danielle is the Birth Love. She's the founder and the CEO of the Birth Love. And you might say, like, what is the Birth Love? And because I wasn't sure either, I mean, as a man, I loved the fact that my wife gave birth, but I didn't really understand kind of what she was talking about. So we're going to get to that. Danielle is a birth educator, and she's a mother of two. She's a fitness enthusiast, and she's the founder of the Birth Love. So Danielle was born and raised in Queens, New York, and we all know New York has been really hit hard through COVID. And Danielle and her German spouse relocated to Calgary in 2010 and started their family in 2014. Since the birth of her first son, Danielle has been passionate about advocating. And this is where the Birth Love comes in, for better holistic birth education, right? To inform and empower women about having a better birth experience that isn't traumatic. And I just think that's so awesome because, I mean, this is a massive thing today where people are really scared about giving birth. And it is a traumatic event physically. It certainly impacts. And so, I just am so excited to have you today, Danielle. Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. That was a really great intro. Thank you so much, Abe, for having me today. And I'm so blessed to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you. So tell us, just give us an overview of the birth love and kind of the heart behind it. And I mean, we'll get into some of the details in a little bit, but just give us a sense of the overview right now.
Sure. So the birth lab is basically where you'll find the holistic birth education that you're looking for. Um, right now, what I found that there was a gap in, prenatal classes, that it only takes you from pregnancy to birth.
Okay.
But a lot of women who give birth are actually blindsided by
Yeah.
what happens afterwards. So when COVID, started, I knew that I could serve, this specific group of women who are looking for answers, solutions, support. So the birth lab will walk you through pregnancy, labor, birth, and postpartum.
Okay.
So, and what to expect, but not really, sharing, oh, this is what you need to do and telling women this is what you need to do. It's creating the solutions with them through conversation.
Right. So tell me, what was the journey, the story behind that, like the business and kind of how you got from, I mean, you are a mom, you were sharing with me earlier, you have two children, which is great. So you've given birth, right? So tell us a little bit about how that then led to where you are today in terms of founding this company, which is awesome, by the way.
Thank you, thank
Yeah,
you. So,
absolutely.
my journey started in 2014,
Okay.
and when I was pregnant. Actually, I was pregnant 2013,
Okay.
but it was our trip to Helsinki 2 years prior, and we were visiting our friends. And my friend Kirsty, she was pregnant at that time. She had mentioned to me, as we're touring the city, oh, that's where I'm going to give birth. And I said, is that a hospital? And she said, no, that's a birthing center. I'm like, what? Women give birth in the birthing center? What is that? She's like, well, here in Finland, we usually give birth with midwives. Doctors only come in if you're high risk or emergency. And the rooms, they have beautiful beds, they have tubs, they have stand up showers. And to me, in my mind, I just it was so surprising that this could be the environment for women. And it
Hmm.
truly is in Europe.
So
So,
different from what we have here, right?
absolutely, absolutely. She painted me this real, picture of what Finnish women experience and how they experience it. And, when I became pregnant, that's when I started to search here in Calgary, you know, midwifery, what are my options? And then I found a midwife here. And honestly,
Hmm.
there's a waiting list for midwives, right? And so when I found mine, I went into the mindset of, I want to learn everything that I can that will empower me the way I want to give birth. So I
Okay.
made sure that I had surrounded myself with people who will help me achieve just that. So the first time I met my midwife, she's my midwife for both of my kids. So
Okay.
she helped me deliver, 2014 and 2017.
Okay.
And my mindset meeting her was, I told her, I want to have a 30-minute birth.
Right.
And she looked at me, she said, okay, let's do it.
Wow. Okay.
And so with my son, active labor was an hour and 45 minutes, an hour
Okay.
and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
My second with my daughter, an hour and 30 minutes, okay?
Wow.
So I share my story not to say, oh, this is the standard that you should hit. I share my story to broaden the curiosity
Yeah.
of pregnant women of uh, what your body is able to do, right?
Right.
So with my experience, I didn't have to go to the hospital.
Okay.
The birth center here in Calgary was amazing,
Okay.
and the whole experience of giving birth to me,
Right.
that's when I realized it's not a traumatic event. It's actually a transformation for women into
Okay.
womanhood.
Okay.
Okay. So if with my clients from the get-go, I have that in their mind that you are not just simply giving birth,
Okay.
you are transforming. So by working with me, right, that's the transformation that happens.
That's amazing. So, and I mean, obviously, like I'm a man, and I say that, respectfully because I've been in the room 3 times, and three kids, and I'm so grateful that we really didn't have any complications. But I'll tell you that all 3 times the labor was a lot longer than that. And so, from the experience perspective, like as a woman, when you said that, this helps you move into womanhood, and again, I'm no expert on that, that's for sure. But what does that mean? Tell me more about that, because that's really an interesting sort of thought process, I think.
hmm So, in our society, there's a stigma.
Right.
Hollywood does not help at all because the movies, the TV shows, it will always depict a woman in labor who is helpless, who has no control, and it just paints a traumatic event for both women and their partners, right? So when women work with me, it's not just the women, it's actually with their partners as well.
Okay.
Speaking to your point of, you've experienced it 3 times, I'm there to also support the partners and give them the tips, what
Right.
to expect, and empower the partners as well because they're part of that community that surrounds the woman giving birth.
Right.
So by empowering their partners, I tell them from the get-go, you are just as important in this process,
Okay.
and know that you are not just a fly on the wall. And there are things that you can do, and let me show you, and we'll work on it together.
Okay. That's just awesome. So then, from the perspective of the midwife, their role is to coach you and to support you through that journey. Is that essentially what's happening there?
Yes, and it actually goes into passing down wisdom,
Okay.
right? So when we talk about womanhood, we got to go back to hundreds of years ago, where if a woman was giving birth, she is surrounded by other women.
Right.
And there's a sense of a transfer of power that happens, but
Yeah.
at the same time, wisdom is passed down. And that's what I truly believe is through my experiences, I'm able to transfer the wisdom and the empowerment that my clients need in order to get them through the birth experience and into motherhood.
Okay. Love that. So then, business. I mean, so your business model essentially is working with the moms, to coach them through the process. And are you a midwife yourself, or that's a different function than what you're providing?
Yes, definitely a different function.
Okay.
My role with my clients is basically coaching, and I
Okay.
do have a course.
Yeah.
So my course is the 4 topics:
Okay.
pregnancy, labor, birth, and postpartum.
Okay.
So it's not just a prenatal course.
Right.
So think of it as a library vault. It has about 22 modules.
Wow.
Yes, they don't have to consume everything,
Right.
but consume what you need, and
Okay.
then you'll know where to go if you do end up needing it. Such
Right.
as, let's say, if the doctor says, okay, we have to induce you, you can go back to your library, and you and your partner can feel more confident because there are certain questions that are laid out there as well to guide my clients. I'm not necessarily there with them, but they take the knowledge with them and they experience the process for themselves.
Okay.
So with that, because I started this business at the beginning of COVID,
Okay.
it was my MVP, right?
Yeah.
And when you go into business, you try to think of, okay, COVID is here, the pandemic is here, that's something that I can't control, right?
Yeah.
What can I control? So I identified my minimum viable product, which is an online course. And from there, it just grew and grew and grew.
Love that. So good. So then, tell me the whole sort of journey to make you you. Let's go right back. Born in Queens and in New York, and then what happened? I mean, take us right back to the beginning and tell us your whole. I mean, as much as you're comfortable sharing. Just kind of your journey.
Well, I did go to Southern California I went to college there. I was a wild child. I was definitely a wild child. I mean, you have a young adult living in Los Angeles and Hollywood,
Of
you
course.
know, you do
Yes.
experience a lot.
Yeah.
For me, I was living my life. My faith wasn't very strong at that time, right? You're young, and um, my faith really did strengthen when I became a mom, right, as
Okay.
a Christian. And that's where I started to realize for myself that my life isn't just for me. It's
Okay.
meant to serve,
Right.
right? And so with that rooted inside of me, serving, how can I serve? How can I help? Right? But growing up, I wasn't always the perfect child, right? So I was a wild child and I was a rebel without a cause. So I know what it's like to live without hope, feeling hopeless, being labeled as a bad child, being labeled as a black sheep. And that's why actually I talk to my clients about, being conscious about how you label your children, right? Because they can really carry that into their adulthood.
Right. Yeah. No, keep
Hmm.
going. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah. So, since I became a mom in 2014. That's when my heart grew and grew and grew for being in community, right? Because growing up, I was living for myself, and going back, it was more what made me happy. I didn't really care about anyone. And I guess that mentality is shared amongst a lot of young adults right now, right? Me, 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 me. But as you grow older, you do gain wisdom. You do gain those experiences. So now that I am experiencing life and living in abundance, I know what it's like not to have that. I know what it's like to break down. My parents were divorced when I was very young, right? And so being a parent now, naturally, all of us parents, we want to do better, right? Not to speak ill of our parents, but that's just a natural thing. If I can provide more, I'll provide more. If I can do this, I'll do this. But yeah, so as a mom, you think, how can I make the world better, right? That my kids will grow old in when I am already gone,
Yeah.
right? So there's a sense of service there, and this idea of the birth love has been inside of me for 5 years.
Nice.
So it's been, when someone talked about being pregnant or they want to become pregnant, I was so excited. But then I would see their faces horrified and scared. And I'm like, no, like, don't be. Allow space and create space inside of you to know that that can be a positive experience, right? And just through my conversations, everyone was like, you should do this, Danielle. My experience has been 12 plus years in sales, so as an account executive. And, having conversations, that's truly how you know that your business is aligned with your core, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Great.
uh, speaking about the positivity that a pregnancy and labor and delivery and motherhood, it can all be a positive experience, but it really does start inside of you, right?
Yes.
So there's some work that needs to be done, and it varies per client, right? And around the world, culturally, right?
Yeah.
So, beginning of COVID, I said, this is the time that when you say, if only I had the time, I would do this, this, and
Yeah.
this.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
I prayed about it,
Yeah.
and I said, God, this is what my heart, I feel convicted to do. Lead
Okay.
me and guide me.
Okay.
And I just gave myself the first 90 days. So April 1st, I hit the ground running and, incorporated, and, I have a lawyer and did all of the back end things, create the website. So because I also wanted to go into, COVID quarantine with my learning cap on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Consume the things that will help you and build you up.
Yeah.
There was so much noise in the beginning of COVID is bad. Our world, it just seemed like our world was ending, right?
Yes. Yes.
Not to say that, the pandemic is a happy butterfly rainbows kind of event. It's not. But for me, as a family,
Yeah.
we decided we're not going to watch news.
Yep.
Okay. We're
Yep.
only going to consume the articles that are relevant to us,
Good call.
right? And focus on what are your goals,
Yeah.
and make mini goals, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
quarterly, annually. And I knew that I did not want to be a solopreneur,
Right.
because that is lonely,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It sure can be. Yep.
Growth doesn't happen when you're alone, right? So growth happens when there's challenges and you go beyond your comfort zone. So during quarantine, I was connected with women in New York, Los Angeles, Saudi, all around the world.
Awesome.
So when we speak about quarantine being, a time where we didn't really speak to people, or, it was very hard to
Yeah.
marketing, because when you're a business owner, you
Yeah.
wear all the different hats.
I'm with you.
And marketing right now, especially during COVID, the time that we're in, the marketing now in 2020 is
Yes.
different from how you did it 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So you have to know who your target market is, who are your clients, and how are you going to connect with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's come back to that. I mean, when we talk about marketing and COVID, I do think it's a different day, isn't it? And again, that can be seen as good or bad depending on who you are. But I also think it's important we nestle COVID in a long period of disruption when it's come to marketing and advertising, right? I mean, marketing and advertising has been changing for years, and so what have been some strategies that have worked for you in this environment? For any entrepreneurs or business owners who might be tuning in today. I mean, what are you finding is working, and what are you finding isn't working anymore?
Yes. So, the question of who is your target market and how are you going to connect with them? There's so many platforms: Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram,
Yes.
TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right? So pick one. Pick one where you feel that that's where your target market is, right?
Yeah.
Where they pretty much spend most of their time. So for me, I saw Instagram. Instagram has 1 billion users, about 47% of them are active every single day, right?
Wow.
And it broke down the borders of me just being a Calgary educator,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so with Instagram, if you understand how to use it effectively, it can really, exponentially help your business when it comes to marketing,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm not just saying post, you know, just do posts. No, your posts actually has to be of value.
Yes.
And when I say target market, I actually have one person in mind. I created my avatar. So when I put out content, and when I say content, so if you look at my Instagram feed of At the Birth Love, you'll find that if you're a first time mom and you start clicking through those posts, you'll be like, oh, I didn't know this. This is great. And I know that it's of value because I see all the saved posts. I
Yeah.
see it all.
Nice. That's awesome.
Right? And going back to not being a solopreneur, it's for you to connect with other business owners, right? And I tend to connect with Calgary business owners first,
Yeah.
because I believe that our local economy, if you invest in it,
Yeah.
it does so much for our community, right? And
Yeah.
let me tell you, there are so many awesome entrepreneurs in Calgary who are moms, who are dads, and they're just like, Danielle, we love what you do. Let's collaborate. I'm like, yes.
So awesome. That's so great. So then, and we'll ask you this later as well, but where can people find you on social media? Like, what's the best place in terms of the your social media handles?
Yeah, so the best place to find me is at the Birth Love on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, just send me a direct message, and yeah, we'll get connected right there and then.
Love it. Okay. So, one of the things that you mentioned earlier, and I couldn't agree more when it comes to target market. And, one of the things I love about you, and I appreciate this about entrepreneurs so much when they have it figured out in terms of their target market. So many people, they have this really wide approach, like I'm going to reach the whole planet, and then you're kind of like, well, there's 8 billion of us here, so it's going to be tough to reach all of them. So clearly you're focused, it sounds like, on women who are giving birth, right, in that process, which is a nice defined niche. How did you come to that? What was your journey to arrive at that level of clarity?
Yes. So for me, I started, some posts and I used the analytics to my advantage,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So I know that my target audience is women, that's age 25 to 34.
Okay.
And a lot of it, they're in administrative professional in their careers, right? So administrative professionals. And so, when I think of my avatar, right, you have to really zone in on who that person is. Give
Yeah.
them a name. I name mine Taylor, right?
Taylor. Okay.
Yes. So it may not be that they're pregnant right now, but if inside of them they want to be a mother someday,
Yeah.
they're gonna start following you.
Yes.
So they may not be pregnant right now. And then once they start following you, you engage. So every single day, I do have an Instagram routine
Okay.
that I engage with my clients
Okay.
because you need that Instagram algorithm to
Yeah.
work in your favor.
Yeah. So tell us about that. Tell us a little bit about what you know about the Instagram algorithm and what that engagement looks like.
So if you are active on Instagram and you have a business profile on Instagram, I would say let's do a checkup on it. So if someone was to come to your page, do they know exactly what you do,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And what service are you offering? And branding.
Right.
What is your brand? When I first started out, I was like, oh, a lot of these pages look similar,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
They look alike.
Right.
So if you look at my page compared to others in the industry, it does pop out because
Okay.
I said to myself, how am I going to differentiate myself?
Yeah.
Right? Why are they going to want to click on the post?
Yeah.
And from the very beginning of COVID, I knew that there was going to be more people active online.
Yes.
So in marketing, you need to grab their attention within, less than 2 to 3 seconds, right?
Love it. Yeah. And
Once
so
you
how?
grab, yes. So once you grab their attention,
Yeah.
they're now reading through your posts, right? And
Absolutely.
at the end, that's where you also have, your free PDF guide, your checklist. So then they become your subscribers.
Love it. So then tell me about this like idea of differentiation because there is a lot of noise out there and a lot of competition. And I hear that all the time. And people will say, what am I going to do about all the competition? And so what are some things that have helped you differentiate yourself on Instagram?
Yes. So definitely there are times where you're going to have to put your blinders on,
Okay.
right? Don't worry about the competition because from the very beginning, I knew that how I teach is going to be different from how others teach.
Okay.
My content is different from others' content. So
Okay.
people learn different ways, right? And so not everyone is going to want to, do my course or their course. So it's finding a niche. What is your niche? And, working, with your eye kind of laser focused on that. Because if you look at competition and you're worried about, what Sally is doing over there and what Karen's doing over here,
Yeah.
you're taking away that energy from your business, right? You have, like, for me, I will create space in myself and my mind and my soul for things that really do help me. And if it doesn't, I just don't give it space.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. I love it.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we had chatted about just a few minutes ago too is just the stigma that mothers who are birthing, and maybe pregnant women in general experience. So tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's a really important issue. We hear a lot about declining birth rates through COVID, which kind of makes sense because everyone's nervous about going to the hospital and engaging with the healthcare system, and then but even before COVID, I think the sort of the Western world, we've had declining birth rates for a long time. And what do you think's kind of happening there? I mean, is that stigma or is that just the economy? Like, what are your thoughts?
It's different in every country. So we know that Japan has a declining birth rate. So is Germany, right? So it's different in every country. However, right now, I really do want to highlight when a couple months back when Black Lives Matter came into the world platform here, that our world was still and it created quietness so that we were able to see the injustice in the world, right? So for me, I saw that, I asked myself, why is it that Black women have higher rates in in stillbirths? They don't have the proper care. What's going on, right? And so if we even break it down, because we all, I think, internally look to see what our privileges are.
Right,
I'm American, right? But
right,
I live here on the other side of the border, which I'm so grateful for
right.
because I saw that the women in the US, they're not getting the proper care, they're not getting enough care. And here in Alberta, my midwife,
Right.
100% covered by our universal health care, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In the States, they have to pay a minimum of 3,500 US dollars to have a midwife. I have a client that paid $10,000 for a midwife. So if you're a first time parent and you see that as a cost right straight out of the gates,
Yeah.
you're probably not going to go with a midwife. You're going to go with, you know, an obstetrician, more of the medical route. So there's not very much options. So when we talk about empowering women of, you know, birth is a natural process of human life. It is not a medical emergency. That in itself, that's how I work with my clients, right? Is
Okay.
to unlearn that it's not a medical emergency, and you really do have to research, right? But there are some women who want to go to the hospital and give all full control to the doctors, and that's how they feel safe. That's absolutely fine,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
you need to ask questions,
yeah.
right? And know that you have the legal and ethical right to ask those questions and to be given time to process. Because most, what's happening right now is, a lot of women out there feel pressured,
Yeah.
feel pressured by their medical care provider of, this is what's happening, this is what you have to do. And so they just go with it, not really understanding the procedures, the alternatives, and the question of what if we don't do this, right? So having that confidence inside of you that to take ownership and control of your experience, that is something that you can do.
No, I love that. I love it. And I mean, it's just about empowerment, right? And recognizing that, and I like how you mentioned, different women, they do have different realities. I think a woman in Alberta is, in a lot of ways, very fortunate, and in comparison, let's say, to someone in parts of the US or maybe even other countries around the world, those options would either go up or down in terms of their choices. But I think no matter what that is, it's so important to be empowered. So tell me the biggest challenge for you so far in starting and launching your business, because you've shared that you've been pregnant with this vision for a long time, but you kind of launched, it sounds like in April, which is just awesome. So tell us, what's your biggest challenge been so far?
My biggest challenge being an entrepreneur or the biggest
Yeah.
challenge? Okay.
Well, I mean, however you want to handle it. I mean, as an entrepreneur, would be great. But then if you want to talk about anything else, it'd be wonderful too.
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge before starting all of this is, I had a 9 to 5 job, right? Which is stable, right? The stability. You have the benefits, which was great. And, but transitioning and pivoting from an employee to actually owning your own business,
Yes.
you let go of, the benefits, the stability, and you see that there is the opportunities, right? And so when I was able to see, okay, I felt confident enough that this is the time, this is the time that I'm going to use in order to launch my business. And I did just that. I think the biggest challenge right now would be, again, putting my blinders back on because there is a lot of noise, right? There is a lot of noise. When I say a lot of noise is other entrepreneurs around the world who may not be aligned with you, but want to pick your brain.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It's like, I'm spending time with you. However, I cannot do that, X amount of hours per day because I have my own time blocks that I have to honor and stick to. So it's basically right now time management. If we really want to break it down, it's time management and honoring those blocks of time that you've set for yourself.
Yeah. And then more on a personal level, as a woman, as a mom, as an entrepreneur, what challenges have you faced, or have you faced any?
Definitely when my kids were both home,
Yeah.
right? The school just started. You'll now see that, wow, Danielle's going live so much more this week and next week and then in the weeks to come. It's because I'm really capitalizing on that time that's
Okay.
uninterrupted,
Love it.
right?
Love it.
So because when you're home and your kids are home, it's like, your snacks. That's my middle name, Snacks. And refereeing your kids. So that to me has been, something that I really truly am grateful for now that my kids are, they have great care, they have great teachers in the schools because it does give us, the parents, the time to do what we need to do.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I did want to ask you about that. I mean, obviously, I would never want us to give advice or to tell parents what to do, but the whole area of kids going back to school, I feel personally like no matter what a parent decides, I've sort of taken a no judgment approach, realizing that every parent is having to work through their own questions and issues. And I guess would love to just hear what have your thoughts been around reopening kids back in school, and if how a parent could perhaps minimize any anxiety that they might be feeling about that.
Well, I need to be honest with you. I had the mom anxiety. I had the mom anxiety yesterday. It was my son's first day, and I was a bit emotional because
Yeah.
I've been in my mind. I'm saying, "Oh my gosh, Danielle, you are sending your child to school during a pandemic."
Yes.
And then there's this little voice inside of you saying, "What are you doing? You're crazy for doing that." But then I had to really just focus and be confident in the decision of sending my kids back. And why am I confident about that? Is because I know our school, the principal has been amazing, even before COVID. So going into COVID, the principal of our school was, the way he handles finances, right? When we had a lot of the major cutbacks in the educational system, we were so blessed and fortunate that our school was not impacted. Why? Because the principal always kept his eye on the financials, the cash flow, right? Don't spend more than you need. And that's what really put our school in a good position to start at the very start of COVID.
Yeah.
And the communication. The
Yes.
communication that he just sent out, during quarantine and the engagement from the teachers. For me, I felt, again, very blessed because I know that, talking with my other friends, they were saying, Danielle, how long is your homeschooling online every day? And keep in mind that my son was only in kindergarten during quarantine.
Right.
And I said, we're doing schoolwork for about 2 to 2.5 hours. And some of them are like, what? We only have like one activity per day and that's it. So again, it's that engagement, right?
Yeah.
When you are engaged, your confidence builds. Your confidence builds. So when a lot of the new, procedures were coming out,
Yep.
again, that was communicated to us to make the decision whether you want to homeschool or not. Here it is.
Yeah.
With other parents that I've talked to, some of them are doing homeschool, and we respect each other's decision, right? We are
Yeah.
kind to each other. And the answer that I love the most about why a mom chose to homeschool, she said, because I have the resources to keep my son home,
Yeah.
I'm basically creating a space for other kids who have to be in class
Yeah.
so that we can also help,
Yeah.
giving that space, literally space.
Yeah.
So, this is a
Right.
time where, yeah, there are some parents who might be judgy,
Yeah.
but in my tribe, in my community, there's no judgments, right? And that's why it's so important to find your community, because if you don't have one, I would strongly recommend that you find your tribe and your community, because it does help you with growing, and especially through hard times like COVID.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, and I love it. I mean, I think too, the big challenge has been just trying to sort out, even within schools in the same city, some of the differing way that they want things handled. And I think, a week, 2 weeks from now, I hope everyone feels a lot more comfortable, because then some of those anxieties will have been addressed. And I love what you said, that some people are choosing online so that they can create space for others. And that's beautiful. So that's great. I guess maybe one final question, well, maybe not the last, but, as a husband and as a man, I mean, what is some advice you can give to men out there who are partners to women who are, either contemplating pregnancy, or currently pregnant, or being a mom? I mean, it is such a partnership, isn't it? But nonetheless, women have absolutely unique challenges that men just don't have. And I think any man would be foolish not to just acknowledge that. And so what advice would you have for men?
The advice that I would have for men is actually it's for men and women,
Okay.
right? The biggest mistake that everyone does in their relationship is miscommunication or not communicating at all,
Okay.
right? When a woman is pregnant, there's so many different hormones. Your hormones is out of whack.
Yeah.
Even after you give birth, your hormones are out of whack as a woman, okay?
Yeah.
And so for a man, just know that you are just as important in this in the whole entire pregnancy. You may not be carrying the child in you. However, your engagement in it is really important to your partner as well, who is carrying your child. So even if you can't make all the appointments, make the important appointments, be with her, hold her hand, and also, learn on your own of what you want to consume, right?
Yeah.
So my partner, when I was pregnant, he was, reading books about parenting, right?
Yeah.
Audiobooks, listen to podcasts,
Yeah.
really do consume that kind of content,
Yeah.
which can help you. So let's talk about communication. So communication is something, again, my relationship's not perfect, it's work. Relationship is work, okay? It's not easy, it's work. And you'll know that you're in the right one if you want to keep working at it.
That's right. That's right, eh?
Don't throw in the towel.
That's right.
So, you know, when a woman is pregnant, sometimes you'll feel, you're not being seen or acknowledged, right? So
Hmm.
I would say really understand how your wife feels loved. And I think that goes to the basics of the 5 languages of love.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my biggest advice also to my clients is know how you feel love. So if you don't know what the 5 languages of love is, I highly recommend that you know what they are,
Yeah.
because once you know what your spouse's love language is, then it will create that opportunity for you to share what your love language is, right?
Yes.
So, we all feel love differently. And just understanding that basic fact of, okay, my wife, she wants to hear it. You look good today. Or, she wants me to do an act of service. So 5 languages of love, know that. And it may seem after your wife gives birth or your partner gives birth that you have no role in it. You're wrong. So once your pregnant wife gives birth,
Yeah.
what I suggest is you take ownership of communications, because a woman does. I honestly didn't have time, so I was like,
Yeah.
Ben, here's my phone. You do all the communication, the texting. Whoever wants to come by, you do it. And second, you create that nest for your wife, your partner, and your child. So what it looks like is this. It may seem like your wife is feeding the baby a lot and it's just a lot of interaction between your wife and the baby.
Yeah.
Your role is to make sure that your wife is fed.
Yes.
Breakfast, lunch,
Yeah.
dinner,
It's great.
right? When
Yeah.
they're feeding the baby, make sure, offer a little snack, trail mix, water,
Yeah.
right? Pillows,
Love
right?
it.
And if you can, I really do highly recommend that you change nappies,
Right.
right? It's really changed what the father role is now in 2020 as to 1960s,
Sure. Sure.
1950s.
Yeah.
We all know that it was more hands off for fathers, but now we're seeing
Yeah.
dads are so involved,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's that engagement with your spouse. Don't forget that, you know, after women give birth, their hormones are still out of whack. So intimacy could be an issue, but talk about it. The biggest mistake that you can is not talk about it,
Mm.
because then you are not communicating what each other needs.
Right. No, that's so good, and some really practical advice. So all the men listening in, I hope you hear well, and I think it applies even as your kids get older. I know my wife is probably the nicest human on the planet. Most people would say that, but the only time she gets a little bit wingy is when she hasn't eaten. So I I know if she's irritable, I just got to get her food, and then she will sort of straighten out how she's feeling, and then we can have a better conversation, right? So it's practical. It's just those practical things, right?
And even during your daily routines now, right?
Yeah.
If you're having a bad day,
Yeah.
just say it. Be like,
Yeah.
listen, it's been a stressful day. It's not you. It's
Right.
really not you. I'm just tired. I need more sleep.
Yes.
And you'll find me saying that as well, because men cannot read minds, all
No.
right? And
No.
women cannot read minds. They then just assume.
Yes.
So bridge that gap, right?
So good.
Again, I'm not saying that my relationship is perfect.
No,
It takes work.
it
It
does.
takes work and understanding and growth, right?
Yeah. Well, we're
Growing.
all in this together, and I think a lot of it is people are trying to figure out, how to have a relationship with themselves, how to have a relationship with their significant other, and then the kids, right? And weaving all of that together while still managing the complex professional relationships, other family relationships. Like it's a lot, but I think if people lean into the art of relationships in general, they're going to do better in life than people who don't. So, this has been great today, folks. I really want to encourage you to follow Danielle, and definitely you can see her information, Instagram on the screen. You could also, I'm sure Cynthia is going to put it in the chat box, but it's in Instagram, it's at the birth love. Any final thoughts, Danielle, that you'd like to just share here today to our audience?
Yeah, so, we highly talk about self-care, and I just also want to share that self-care is for everyone, men and women.
Yeah.
So taking time to take care of yourself, however that looks, make sure that you are intentional about that and that you are doing that. Morning routines for me is the core of how I produce and create. So have a morning routine and know that you also need time to reset, right? Reset daily, just so that you can create that space to live in abundance.
Love it. And it's so good, right? I mean, you've got to reset. I think for moms who are so busy caring for everybody else, it's such great advice just to remind them, hey, make sure you care for you, right? Because you, number one, you deserve it, but number two, I think it's going to make you better at caring for others, so
And be
um,
gracious to yourself. Give
great,
yourself grace.
great.
It's not going to be perfect every day, so that's where you give yourself a break. But I like to say, be great. Give yourself grace.
It's great. So that's Danielle, folks, the Birth Love founder and CEO. Please do go to the Birth Love, yeah, in Instagram, and I've checked it out. She's got some great posts. It is, time for hope, folks, and so either with Danielle, for those of you who are moms or considering that in that process, or for anyone else, it's time to re-engage and to rebuild our dreams. We can't just wait for this pandemic to be over before we move forward with our lives. We've got to be safe. 100%, but let's move forward. And so book a strategy call with us here at or with Danielle, with respect to her areas of expertise. And this has been an incredible ride. Business Resilience Now, we've had such a great time and learned so much from so many different guests. So Danielle, tell us, just leave the last word to you. Any final thoughts here today?
Just remember to be kind. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and always lean in with that uncommon love, right? Know that people are going through things in their own life. So if maybe they're not nice to you today, just know that it's not you, it's them.
So good. I just think if you look at social media and you just think in general, like what great advice. Just be kind. And it's so easy to react with judgment or criticism, but you know what? Kindness is the currency that every language can understand. So thank you so much, Danielle. And again, folks, reach out to Danielle, reach out to myself. We're here to help. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.